Another super foggy morning here in Daytona Beach. Of course, later it's going to be up in the 80s. I was just listening to a video by Michael Bordenero on his YouTube channel as I was driving up here from Orlando. And some pretty interesting information. I've talked about his channel before. He goes out to California every summer, but usually he's based out of Miami. Used to be in the real estate and everything. Usually he's walking around Miami talking about different real estate, economic issues, and so forth. But he had this really good video talking about all the unexpected costs that people have for owning a home and why so many people in this recent survey regret owning a home, have buyer's remorse. Because it's not just the mortgage, you know. There are all these other costs that are involved. And right now, apparently the average American homeowner is over $25,000 a year, over $2,000 a month. For all these other things you got to do, property taxes, insurance, if you got HOA fees or special assessments, depending where you live and all of that. So right there, as he pointed out, a lot of people, they think, well, I'm going to retire after I get my house paid off, you know, don't have a mortgage anymore. Even if you don't have a mortgage, you know, the extra costs are going to be more than what the average Social Security check is going to be in 2025, you know. Average Social Security check, I think they say, is $1,900 and some dollars a month. If you own a home, you better have a whole lot more than just Social Security coming in, because it's going to take more than your Social Security just to pay all those extra costs that you have associated with owning a home. And that doesn't even include emergency things like putting on a new roof or something, you know. It depends where you live in the country, of course. But man, here in Florida, you know, you're just not going to make it. There are places in this country where you can still buy super cheap houses and all of that. But the question is, do you want to live there? That's the problem. Finding a place that is cheap enough to live on Social Security, or Social Security and a pension, let's say, but still provides you with a quality of life that makes it worth living there. And that's getting harder and harder to find in America. I've seen YouTube channels before where the guy talks about places you can live in America on just, you know, whatever amount the average Social Security check is. But man, if you don't have some kind of savings and things for emergencies and all of that, it's going to be hard to find a place where you actually would want to live. There's no point in just finding a place to barely exist if you're just going to be sitting around, you know, your little cheap house watching television, which keeps getting more and more expensive all the time too, with all the streaming services and stuff you have to have just to watch TV, and rotting away until you die. You know, people don't want to live like that because it's not living, it's just subsisting. But that's why so many people in America are taking off for the Philippines or Thailand or, you know, Central America or Mexico or wherever. It's because here in America, it's just more and more impossible to live a good life on any kind of, you know, basic retirement income. So I thought that was very interesting, because you hear that all the time from people. Well, you know, after I get my mortgage paid off, I'm going to retire, which is still doable, obviously. But if all you're counting on is just Social Security, it's a fantasy. You look at some place like the Philippines, which of course is, you know, where my interest lies, and why you see so many Americans and other expats from, you know, England, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, wherever, ending up over there, because you can actually go somewhere that's interesting, exotic, especially if you're, say, like 60, 70-year-old guy from America, and you've been working your whole life Maybe you've seen a lot of different stuff in America all over the country, which is a pretty big place, has a lot of different things to offer, but you never really got to scratch your travel itch in your younger days. Maybe a little tiny bit of time in the military where they sent you to some base in some other country or whatever, but you never really got to go out there and explore that big exotic world out there that you see on television and National Geographic and everything. You find yourself in a situation where your choice is between trying to have the lifestyle you can in America with just your Social Security and a little bit of a pension, or moving to somewhere like the Philippines, exotic country with lots of beautiful, happy brown people and beautiful young women and beaches, nice, warm, tropical weather, and a place that maybe you've always dreamed of visiting, or that type of environment at least, and having the chance to finally, in your later years, explore that kind of a life. And that's not a hard choice for a lot of people, you know. For some people, it's just from an economic point of view, it's just a no-brainer. But that's the reality for so many people. In America here today, it's just getting more and more out of reach to have a decent life unless you're working all the time. And you get to a certain age where, I mean, it's like with me working at the post office and all of that, I can keep working, making good money, good benefits and stuff, if I want to, right up until the day I die, I guess. But you get to a certain point where you just want to be able to have a good life without having to keep doing that. But that old dream of just working until you're a certain age and retiring, and then thinking, okay, I'm going to have enough money to go out and buy an RV or something and just cruise around the country and visit people and visit all the national landmarks and stuff, you know. It's just, it's not there for the current generation the way it might have been for a couple of different generations in the past. That's one thing about Social Security too. You know, a lot of people have a misconception about it, you know, like it's something that they're saving for their retirement. It's like a savings fund, and it's not. The way Social Security was set up to work, the people who are currently working fund the Social Security checks for the people who are currently retired. And when it first started out, that was great, and they had a chance to build up a little bit of a surplus and stuff. You had all these, you know, millions and millions of people in the baby boomer generation and so forth who were able to support the relatively few old people on Social Security back in the day. And then you had a few generations, maybe a couple of generations, let's say, who could actually do that. They could retire, take their Social Security check, still have a nice long life ahead of them in retirement as our lifespans, you know, kept increasing, where they could just go out and cruise around and chill for like 20 or 30 years before they die while collecting Social Security and having that and Medicare be enough to get them through. Those days are gone. Social Security, I think it's almost guaranteed it's going to end up being cut. Our benefits are going to end up being cut. What a lot of us have been planning on getting, it's not going to be there. You know, especially with the political climate right now. And obviously, we have to be able to pay for the stuff, you know. And there's just not as many workers to support all these people who just want to retire. And you see these people on YouTube, you know, I'm going to retire now at 62 so I can get that benefit for as many years as possible, even if I'm not getting quite as much per month. And you've got people that want to live off of Social Security for like 30 years. And the people who are working right now have to pay for that because it's not a savings fund. It's, you know, you see people like, well, calculating how much, you know, how long do I have to withdraw Social Security to be able to get back the money I put into it? And that's not really the way it works. I know a lot of people don't think that's fair, but, you know, that's what IRAs and stuff are for. That's your retirement savings account. Social Security is not that. It's something different. And you've got a lot of people whose only retirement plan is I got to live off my Social Security. And man, it's just, you don't know how secure that's going to be in the future. So it becomes even more attractive to move off to a different place. Even if your Social Security was going to be enough to just barely cover all those extra fees and the expenses associated with owning a house, obviously that right there doesn't leave you anything for food and medicine and anything like that, or entertainment, or taking care of your car. You got to have a vehicle or something to get around depending where you live. And you got the maintenance and insurance and everything on that. But let's just say you did have enough coming in from Social Security to barely eke out an existence. What are you going to do another few years down the line when the government decides to cut that 30%? Then you're screwed, And it's coming, because there are a lot of people who aren't interested in all these old people on Social Security. They don't give a shit about you. That's the first lesson we all have to learn in life, and it's hard for people to learn, is that nobody else really gives a shit about us. We'd like to think they do, but especially if you're talking about like rich, multimillionaires and billionaires and people like that, and the politicians that they own, they don't give a shit about you or me or anybody else except themselves. So anyone who's thinking that Social Security is going to provide them with some kind of a life here in America is probably delusional. Unless you've got some kind of savings, an IRA, a pension, stuff like that coming in from somewhere else, you're probably going to be working until you die, unless you go somewhere else where it's just cheaper to live. And that's why more and more of us, the American dream is not to be located here in America. And then you've got idiots who say, well, if you're not going to stay here in America to spend your money, we're just going to take away your benefits, So you can't win. They want you to stay here so they can keep grinding you into the ground until you're dead and keep working you, because they need, less and less, of course, they need us, but they need to have the subjects, grinding away in the salt mine to keep things going. Who knows, maybe with AI and robots, they can just get rid of everybody and don't need anything. And then they'll have no reason to keep us all alive at all, We'll just be here breathing their air and using their resources to eat their food, and won't need any of the little people at all. So I know that's kind of crazy, just a whimsical little thought there, but that's kind of how it is. You have to come to grips with the reality that nobody really cares if you have a great existence, if you have a great retirement, except for you. And so you have to look out for yourself. You can't be worried about all these people here that want you to keep slaving away and paying them property taxes and HOA fees and stuff. And for a lot of people, finding that freedom just means getting the hell out of here. And that's why you see it more and more and more.